Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing another movie review for you all. This movie is a drama from Romania, Romanian language English subs, released in the year 2022, directed by Cristian Mungiu, and this film is called R.M.N. So R.M.N is about our main character. He has a lot of anger issues, he is fired from his abattoir job in one of the busy cities in Romania. So he decides to leave the city life and he's going to go to the town that he grew up in the middle of nowhere, and he's going to try and reignite an old flame that he had with an old lover. But when he gets there, he realises that things are far from peaceful because there have been two Sri Lankan workers that are working in the bakery. Now the townspeople don't want these Sri Lankans here, they say no foreigners. But the people that hired these foreigners say that you're going to have to live with it, no one else wanted the jobs. And so the longer that these foreigners stay in this town, the more it threatens to destroy it from within. And so whether or not that's the case is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on R.M.N. Cristian Mungiu wouldn't be on my top list of favourite directors, but he's definitely a director that I admire for his sheer honesty that he portrays in his experiences. These are experiences that you can actually go on with the characters, but it's also a microscope upon us as a society. These are things that we can really relate to because either we've committed these things or we know of people who have done the same thing. And so that's what makes it very confronting. You have 4 months, 3 weeks and 2 days, which is about abortion. And you know, the abortion is a very hot topic. A lot of people have different opinions upon that. But that movie really gave you a situation where you thought to yourself, what would I do in a similar set of circumstances? It wasn't pro-abortion and it wasn't anti-abortion. It's basically leaving it up to the interpretation of the viewer to what you actually think. But it was giving you enough clues and evidence to actually try and mould your opinion and give you just a very realistic portrayal of a situation that is very tense. And then you have Child's Pose. Child's Pose, probably my favourite movie of this director. It was a movie about the differences in class, the upper class and the lower class, and how the upper class money can buy you anything, even if it means getting yourself out of a peril situation. I thought that was a very haunting film, it was a very sad film, and the characters were absolutely phenomenal in that Child's Pose, and also that in 4 months, 3 weeks and 2 days. So R.M.N. was another Cristian Mungiu film, and I thought, alright, well the expectations are quite high. What was this movie going to produce? And although this movie isn't as good as those two movies that I've just mentioned, I will say that it is another microscope upon the viewer. This is a societal problem in xenophobia and racism. We've all been around this sort of thing where you have people that are set in their old ways, and when you're set in your old ways, anything new that comes out you lash out against. This is something that makes you feel uncomfortable, and discomfort can actually bring out the ugliness in people. And I thought this movie did it very well in showing that, okay, this is a very remote town, these are people that know each other, but all of a sudden, bang, new people have come in, people that look different to what they look, and so the first thing you do is lash out. And so multiculturalism is a good thing if everybody's on board, but unfortunately it can be a bad thing if you've got people who, as I said, are set in their own ways and have a racist sort of outlook. You've got a lot of older generations in a lot of countries have this sort of reaction to new people, is that they've lived their whole life in a certain way, they don't want to actually change that. And so it's not necessarily a problem with the individuals as far as a personal level is concerned, but it's just the fact it's different. It's something that is a change. And changes for people who are set in their old ways is never, it's never going to have a good outcome. And so that's the tragedy of the whole film, is that these Sri Lankans were absolutely lovely people, but it wasn't necessarily them as human beings that were the problem. It was the fact that this was a change. And so changes can, as I said, bring a lot of discomfort, and that discomfort shapes vulnerable individuals. And I thought the vulnerability in this film was something that made it quite riveting, in that, okay, what are they going to do? How far are they going to go in order to get what they want? And I started to believe that the pressure cooker was rising, and it did threaten a lot of violence. And now, although it's not a violent movie, I thought the threat was there. And so if it's not addressed very quickly and you don't stamp it out as soon as you can, this is what's going to happen. And so no one in this movie really addresses those problems until it's almost too late. And so I thought, okay, that brought up a level of suspense. I thought the tension was rising and rising and rising, and this town was going to explode. But was it actually going to explode, or was someone going to see sense and actually fix this situation before it got out of control? So I thought the acting in this movie, again, a Cristian Mungiu film, it was going to be very well written, and so the actors have a lot to play with. I thought the realistic portrayal, as I said, allows that microscope to be put back upon the viewer, in that you've known someone who might be a victim to xenophobia or racism, or maybe you've gone through that same thing living in another country, and this is the relatability in everyday life that Cristian Mungiu films have. So the cinematography, very bleak and dreary. It's a very depressing film. as I said, very disturbing film in a very subtle way, and it's the minor details in a Christian Mungiu film that make it worth watching. And this is a movie that nearly goes for 2 hours, or just over a little bit 2 hours. But I never really felt as though it got overly boring. I will say that this is the lesser film of his catalogue, but I will say that just the overall tension that the movie has, it's slowly snowballing. But I will say it's for definitely a very acquired taste, because that snowball effect is very, very slow. And so that's something that I have to stress. Do not go into this movie if you're wanting a straight out theatrical sort of film. But if you want a movie that will make you look at you as a viewer and your society, then this is a film I would recommend. Unfortunately, the reason why I didn't love this movie as much as these other films, I thought the characters were quite bland. I didn't really relate to a lot of them. I didn't really care about a lot of them. I got a lot of anger from this film. Is that these two Sri Lankans, really, really nice individuals, but the way they were treated, yes, this happens in everyday life, but I thought I had a lot of frustration. Had a lot of anger, and so no one apart from the Sri Lankans is a likable individual, and so there's no one to really root for, and there's no one to really, you know, gravitate to, in a sense where I wanted them to have a better outcome. I wanted them to have a better life, and so I thought as though the movie was very stagnant. It never really gets that boring if you're prepared to really look at the minor details, but I still thought as though the story struggles to really go anywhere. It's telling a story that has been told before, but I just thought as though it was really struggling to create an identity of its own. So the cinematography, as I said, very bleak. There's a very minimal soundtrack. The acting was fairly decent, and I thought as though the message was thrown out there and really actually makes you look at yourself as an individual and how we treat outsiders. But I just thought as though the characters, apart from those Sri Lankans, were very bland. They just didn't really have too much going for them. They weren't very likeable, and so I never felt as though I was going on a ride with anyone. And that was something that was lacking, and it was something that was there in Child's Pose in 4 months, 3 weeks and 2 days. They had characters that you could actually find very interesting. You didn't necessarily love them, but I found them very interesting, and I wanted to know how their life's going to unfold. Whereas in this film, yes, the situation, the overall theme of the movie is very important to really get out there, but as far as individual merit is concerned, based on characters, I just never really felt that gravitating force. Therefore, I just felt as though something was missing. And so that was unfortunately the issue I had with R.M.N. Yeah, there is a lot to like about it, but unfortunately it's not one of his best films. But if you are into, you know, a very realistic portrayals that make you think about, you know, what you would do in a similar set of circumstances, or what you actually have experienced, then this is a movie I'd recommend. But be very careful. It is very, very slow. It does go at a snail's pace, but if you're prepared to look at the minor details and have a very strong attention span, this is a movie that I would say watch once. So overall, for R.M.N, I'm going to give this one 3 stars. It's not perfect, but again, it is very brave filmmaking and something that I believe has to be encouraged to do further in the future. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching movies, and I'll see you later.